Hey, it's time for another edition of the Cseekly Recap. I'm your host Csomm, and I'm here to go a bit deeper into the topics that I've covered in my shorts. The footage behind is from the game Darkhaven. The first article of the recap is all about Krafton. So Krafton pushes even more into AI R&D with new Chief AI Officer. Krafton appointed Kangwook Lee as Chief AI Officer, highlighting their commitment to AI research and development. Lee, who has been with the company since 2022, will focus on enhancing gameplay, supporting development teams, and exploring long-term research opportunities in AI. You know, folks, when it comes to AI in games and AI in general, my position is kinda mixed, so to speak. In this particular situation, what Krafton is doing, you can kinda see good things and bad things at the same time. If we are talking about good things, the usage of AI could lead to smarter, more alive game worlds. For example, AI-driven NPCs can react, plan, and adapt instead of running scripted loops. If this is done right, for example, enemies can learn your tactics and adapt instead of having the same script no matter what you do. Then we can talk about maybe faster development, which means that you can kinda launch more ambitious games. AI tools in this sense could help you test builds, generate variation of assets, and do prototype mechanics. That, for example, can free designers to actually design and create instead of do this grinding work, so to speak. And essentially, we could witness a new kinds of gameplay. For example, stuff on top of my head would be conversational companions, dynamic storylining, and adaptive difficulty. This could make single-player games less predictable, as in every single playthrough can be different, and that's something I actually always wanted. On the other hand, why this is a bad idea? Well, a lot of gamers are wary of AI in development, myself included. I wouldn't like seeing AI replacing artists, generating soulless content, and just cutting costs instead of improving games. If I feel that AI is there only to save money rather than improve experience, I would definitely not support that company. Another problem can be quality. We all know that AI systems can be unpredictable, which can lead to weird NPC behavior, which is not natural at all. Immersion-breaking dialogue, because you cannot really control what they're going to say. Even gameplay imbalances. For example, if you're going to inject this into a multiplayer game, and you have AI teammates, even small unpredictability can feel unfair. Next issue that I see is expenses with uncertain profits, if I'm thinking like a CEO, for example. You can invest a lot of money into AI R&D and ask a lot in return, but these returns aren't guaranteed. If you're making a tech that doesn't clearly improve player experience, you're just effectively burning money for no good reason whatsoever. Also, if many studios use similar AI pipelines, which is definitely going to be a thing, games might start to feel algorithmically similar, which is exact opposite of what makes standout titles memorable. I don't think anybody wants to see a carbon copy of the game that they already played, just in a sense of, copy my homework but don't make it obvious, so to speak. And final thing that comes to my mind with using AI is all about ethics and legal stuff. There are issues that still aren't fully settled in this brave new world, starting from training data rights, voice and likeness concerns, and transparency about AI-generated content. I mean, imagine how these things can spark controversy so fast. Let's say, for example, they take someone's likeness without their consent, and that person is totally oblivious about the things, and the game comes out and they start attacking that mocap actor or voice actor or whoever. This is just shit show wanting to happen, and I don't think anybody wants this to happen. So as you can see, without a lot of thinking, you can make a nice case for AI and against AI. And this is why this particular topic is so mixed as far as I'm concerned. I would say this can only succeed if AI enhances human creativity instead of replacing it. If you see dogshit textures or characters or whatnot, you'll know instantly that there wasn't a living, breathing person designing these things. And that can immediately tank your game. I mean, the latest example was Highguard, when you check the skins of the weapons and the characters, and it kinda smelled of AI because they were so bland and soulless, and that's something you really cannot replicate because it's easy to see. I guess at the end of the day, it's all about us, the consumers, liking this or not liking at all, which means that you're supposed to vote with your wallet. How effective that strategy is long term, I'm not so sure because I've seen these movements to vote with your wallet, but it never paid out. Maybe now, when we are faced with this AI stuff, people are actually going to stick with their principles, sacrificing future fun, so to speak, because they won't be playing the games that are produced by these companies, and then maybe we will see a change. But for now, we are just gonna see what happens in the future, because there's not a lot you can do with this particular situation. Speaking about not changing the situation, Ubisoft CEO appointed his son as co-CEO of Vantage Studios, the new Assassin's Creed leader. The CEO defended his decision, citing Ubisoft's origins as a family company founded by him and his brothers. You know what I'm going to say. Another day, another Ubisoft shitstorm. I covered this particular topic, this interview that the Ubisoft CEO did a couple of days ago. There's a link in the description if you want to check it out. But it's safe to say that this particular move wasn't really, big brain time move by any stretch of the imagination. That's pretty much when you're looking at this topic from a player or consumer point of view. But if you're looking from a company point of view, this move, what they did, is very, very sneaky. And I'll tell you why. Basically, Vantage Studios, the one with all the money-making IPs, is allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. And not to mention, they have the profit margins because they have all the top IPs like AC or Rainbow Six. On the other hand, all the other creative houses, like they call it, are stuck with unprofitable IPs, and if they don't do good based on what they agreed on, they can just lay off staff and close it down. It's always unpopular to lay off people out of the blue, but if you do it because they didn't succeed, well, that changes things. Also, I'm always in favor of giving young people a fresh start or opportunity or whatever you want to call it. But naming your own kid as a head of this studio, it stinks to high heavens. And there's no way in hell that he's not going to do what his dad says, as in they are 100% in cahoots. So this is just, let's say, an administrative way of saying, I don't have control, but I still have control. Also, if he thinks in the same way his dad thinks, I don't think there is a future for any of these IPs at all, especially when it comes to Assassin's Creed stuff. Because Rainbow Six Siege is already defined, there is not much you can do about it, but with Assassin's Creed, there is a lot of wiggle room to do whatever the hell you want to do. So yeah, I don't really have a lot of faith that Ubisoft is going to do the right thing, and they're just gonna muddle through in order to survive, and ultimately, if they produce more of the stupid shit that they have been producing in the past, they're just gonna go under. But I always tend to be corrected on the things that I say, so we will see what happens. Speaking of we'll see what happens, the New York State Attorney General is suing Valve for allegedly allowing illegal gambling through loot boxes in Counter-Strike 2 and Dota 2. The lawsuit claims the Valve profits from these addictive and harmful practices, which can lead to serious addiction problems, especially for young people. The state is seeking various forms of relief, including restitutions to consumers and a fine. My stance about loot boxes was always the same. I want to see that concept removed from gaming as fast as possible and punish everyone who was doing stupid shit with it. Because in my mind, that's 100% gambling. And all the adverse effects that you can have from it are horrible. They destroy lives, not only from the person that's doing the gambling, but the family members and close friends and so on and so forth. Now, I gotta admit, I don't know enough about the Valve loot box situation here. There was a lot of buzz about FIFA and Madden and all that stuff, but Valve, not really as far as I can remember. If you do a bit of digging, the legal definition of gambling usually requires 3 elements. First one is consideration, buying keys or credit, which is real money input. Then we have chance, which is random outcome since you don't control what you get. And finally there is prize, something of value, which means items can be resold or traded and therefore have market value. If you put these things together, it seems that paying money to spin a slot machine for a prize with resale value applies to Valve. However, game companies typically argue that you always receive something, as in you don't get empty stuff. Items are cosmetic, not cash. Platform credits aren't real money withdrawal, and it's closer to opening trading card packs or blind collectibles. So basically, the legal fight hinges on the question, does resale value turn a cosmetic into a gambling prize? This simple example pretty much shows you how complicated this whole situation is, and definitely has both pros and cons in a sense that, if you're going to figure out if this is gambling or it's not gambling. I will apply a nice idiom here, which is where there's smoke, there's fire. If there are signs, rumors, or evidence of a problem, it's likely that a problem actually exists. So in that sense, yeah, I would definitely punish Valve for what they are doing. Now, some of you might say, well, this is happening because Valve is independent, they are not publicly traded, this and that. And yeah, sure, there can always be a situation where someone wants to hurt other party just because A, B, C, or D reason. Pick your poison and you get what you get. But to summarize, if the court agrees with New York's interpretation, this could force a major monetization redesigns, stricter age verification for in-game purchases, and new rules on how digital item markets operate. So it's going to be interesting to see the outcome of this whole situation, and I'm going to be here to cover it when we get new information about this particular case. So I reckon stay tuned, because it might get very interesting. Speaking about interesting stuff, Crimson Desert, an open-world action-adventure game from Pearl Abyss, is expected to have a playtime of 50 to 80 hours. While shorter than some anticipated, this range includes both main story content and optional activities. The game, inspired by ARPGs but leaning towards action-adventure, will launch on March 19th. When I heard this, or rather when I read this story for the first time, I immediately remember people saying that Witcher 3 was too long, and because of that, Cyberpunk was shorter, since CDPR decided that this particular feedback matters. And let me tell you, I was so pissed because I wanted to enjoy Cyberpunk 2077 as much as I could, and this kinda got mended with the DLC, but still, I felt like there was more to do in that particular world. If Crimson Desert is going to be something along the lines of Cyberpunk, which means, big epic story, world, you name it, I'll be mighty pissed if I cannot enjoy this game for a long time, especially if the game doesn't provide a lot of replayability. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen because the game still isn't out, only a few people managed to play it. But yeah, I'm not a fan of just cutting stuff down because this person or that person said that the game was too long and they couldn't play it because of that. That just means you are weak. That's all there is to it. But in all seriousness, if the game is going to be epic, obviously I want to play as much as I want, but if it's going to be dogshit, like some recent games that I have played, then no amount of hours can save that. In fact, it's going to be a fucking slog if that's the case, and I'm just gonna hate it even more. So yeah, we are going to see how accurate this information is, and also if the game is, as they are advertising it, a second coming of Christ. Stay tuned in 3 weeks to find out more, I guess. The final article that I want to cover is all about Clair Obscure Expedition 33 and its success. Apparently, it was attributed to its $50 price point, which made it more accessible to a wider audience. The game's quality and the perception of it being a bargain contributed to its popularity and critical acclaim. I haven't played Clair Obscure, mostly because it's that type of a combat system that I don't really enjoy, but I was thinking about playing it just to see the story and all that stuff on a story difficulty if it exists. Now, in terms of the price of the game, which is $50, I mean, obviously it's going to play a huge importance, especially when you see these AAA titles that are costing $80 or something like that. Prime example being Avowed or another title from Obsidian, Outer Worlds 2, which at launch were around $80-$90. And what do you get from that? Well, not a lot. Let's do some simple math in order to figure out what I'm talking about. So you pay a game $80 and you play only 35 hours. What's your effective dollar per hour cost? It's definitely somewhere above $2 per hour. And then you play some other game, like for example Clair Obscure, and you put same amount of hours. Obviously your dollar per hour price goes down. And that alone will stimulate you to go and play that game even more or praise it at the end of the day. Even better if the game costs, let's say $20, but your dollar per hour rate is 0.5 or something along those lines. That means that for the money that you paid, you played 2 times the game that you purchased. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Clair Obscure was popular because of this particular price point. I mean, it's definitely not the only reason, but in today's day and age, when they're pumping prices to $70, $80 because it's a AAA title, it counts a lot. And even if I'm not a fan of a combat system in that game, I will definitely be inclined to purchase it rather than play something that I like, but at the end of the day, I'm spending less time in a game that I actually wanted to spend because the game didn't satisfy me. So these price points today, they are very tricky because you never know the higher price point will justify the quality that you expect. It all boils down to what do you expect and what do you get at the end. Me personally, I'm always lowering my expectations a bit in order to not to get disappointed. But in certain situations, there isn't a lot you can do, especially when the game is so bad that you don't want to play it anymore or you don't even want to reconsider a replay. Maybe in the future we're going to see a price reduction of games that are claiming that are AAA just because they are not meeting our expectations. And there are some signs of that happening already. Or if they're not going to lower the price, we're just going to wait for sales. Because nothing hurts you more when you don't sell a product at the initial price, because every single reduction that you make means that you get less money in your pocket. It's going to be interesting when this particular game gets a sequel, or the Clair Obscure people who made the game make another game and then they ramp up the price. And then people will be pulling this article and, they will start to point out that they were just lying and whatever the hell, comes to people's minds. And that's basically another soap opera that's interesting to cover. Only time will tell. And that's basically it when it comes to the news that I have covered this week. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I encourage you to leave comments. I read all of them, and I'm very happy to interact there with you guys. If you enjoy this content, consider liking it and subscribing for more discussions like this. That's it from me, until the next one.